Welcome to the show, it's a vibe we create. Favi and Big Mike, we're elevating the state. Scoop Slam Radio, get ready to dive in the ring of knowledge where the real ones thrive. Scoop Slam Radio, we're breaking the mold. Favi and Big Mike, together we're bold.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scoop Slam Radio. I'm your host tonight, Big Mike, and to my right, the legend, the man himself, Favi Chulo. Favi Chulo, what's going on tonight, man?
And I'm doing good. So good to be here and have this special guest on with us. They got so much stuff going on in the world of not only, independent wrestling, but pro wrestling as well.
Yes.
A lot to talk about.
Yes. Also, you guys know, behind the scenes on the ones and twos, the man, the myth, Solomon Grundy. Solomon, what's going on, man?
Hey, everything's good. I'm excited to see what you guys talk about today.
Hey, well, you know what? Speaking of that, our special guest tonight, next week, Favi and I are going to LAX Fan Fest. It's a wrestling convention at the Hilton Hotel by LAX. And tonight, our special guest is the gentleman who's putting this convention on his name is Victor Pritchard. Victor Pritchard is our special guest tonight, and he is the promoter of LAX Fan Fest. Victor, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk about the big show next weekend.
Hey, well, let's get into it, man. I did a little bit of research, and I see that the company, you guys go to a whole lot of collectible shows and do a whole lot of collectible shows. And as I was looking through it, I was like, wow, man. I mean, you guys have everything. I'm kind of jealous, Favi.
Well, are you a wrestling fan? And is that how you got into it? Or did you just started doing this company and decided that that's where the money was in the pro wrestling?
I'm actually a big wrestling fan. I grew up a wrestling fan as a child. I used to live in West LA, and one of my first live wrestling events was when I was 7 years old, when my father took me to the Great Western Forum back in the NWA UWF days.
Yes.
And I loved going to live wrestling when I was a child. One of my best memories was my father taking me to the LA Sports Arena. And I would tell my dad, let's go sit up at the very, very top. Because if you sat up at the very top of the sports arena, you could go and look at the locker room and backstage. And I loved that. So yes, I'm a big wrestling fan. Our company is actually started off as a sports memorabilia company. So we have a store inside a big collectible show called the Frankenson Collectible Show. And we sell sports cards, memorabilia, autographs. Our niche is pro wrestling autographs. So we sell autograph belts, autograph figures, Funko Pops, game worn, you name it. And we've started doing these autograph signings for about 12 years now. And LAX Fan Fest is our wrestling convention that we started here back in 2020. Our first show was actually literally 1 week before the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a historical show. So our first show was literally on leap year, February 29th, 2020. Our headliner guest, we had Undertaker. We had, at the time, before he was known as Solo Sikoa, he was known as Sifa Fatu. So he was at the show because Rikishi was always a big support of LAX Fan Fest. We had everybody from Enzo Amore to Mark Henry to a whole list of superstars, all independent wrestlers, up-and-coming superstars, Candice Michelle, Kelly. So that was our first show, and then we continued to do LAX Fan Fest once a year, and this will be our fifth one coming up this Saturday, June 28th.
Oh, that's awesome. So the company's name is Gemini Sportscards. So do you guys go to other wrestling conventions around the country, or is LA Fan Fest just the primary one that you guys put on and attend?
Yeah, so LAX Fan Fest is the show that we started that we do here in LA, but we also do other wrestling conventions. We have been doing the WrestleCon show every year for the past 12 years. We were just at the one in Las Vegas.
Is that where
So
you met
we're
him?
so were we.
Is,
Yep.
is
Yeah,
that where you
Yep.
met him?
no, I no.
Oh wow.
No, I didn't. We didn't see each other at WrestleCon. What happened was our champion AJ Mana has a booth next week,
Yes.
and he
Yeah.
says he goes, "Hey Oos, you gonna go to Fan Fest?" And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You're gonna go to LAX Fan Fest?" And he's like, "Look it up." So when I looked it up, and I'm like, "Oh," and I talked to Favi, and I'm like, "Hey, we got to go." And then that's
Yeah.
when I reached out to you, and I appreciate you getting back to me and giving me all the info. And we were like, "Yep, want a table, want a booth."
If you look at our Scoop Slam radio board back here, that's the one from WrestleCon
Yeah,
in Las
that's when we
Vegas.
had at
Mhm.
WrestleCon.
So I'm
Yeah.
surprised we
Yeah.
didn't see him in it because we definitely would have had you come over and come on the live broadcast because we're all about getting it out there,
Yeah.
so you can get the people to come in and check out your stuff. Did Mike happen to tell you about what happened to us at WrestleCon? How we were able to lock in the Steiner brothers?
Oh no, no, I
Tell
didn't
him what
know.
happened.
So
Sorry.
we had purchased two booths together. One
Mhm.
was one for PWA, a wrestling company, and one for Scoop Slam. And Preston, who was the Steiner Brothers handler, he comes over and he goes, "Hey, I'll make a deal with you." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Rick and Scott Steiner, they're upstairs and they're not really getting a lot of traffic." Said, "We can get them on your podcast if you guys will let them sign their stuff next year at this booth."
Well, first of all, he asked us.
Yeah.
He goes, "Hey, do you think it's if I bring?" Did you know that there was an upstairs up there where Ric Flair and all them
Ric-
were signing?
Yeah, this show they kind of had a different layout. I think
Yeah.
we were in the main ballroom
Yeah.
and then they had another side ballroom and then they had one upstairs.
Yeah.
So I think
We were in the
it
main
was
aisle.
kind of all over the place.
Did you go upstairs? Because I didn't even. First of all, I didn't even know how to get up. I know Mike Tyson, Ric Flair, and all them were upstairs. Did you get a chance to go up there?
So I got there earlier in the week, and I usually go and kind of do a walk through the
Yeah.
show just to kind of see. I think upstairs they had the Hardy Boys,
Yeah.
they had
Arn
the
Anderson.
Steiner brothers, Arn Anderson, and then they had another corner room where they had put Bret Hart, Kurt Angle, Mike Tyson. And I think what happened was is that room got so overpopulated, a lot of people were stuck in line for Tyson, so
Yeah.
they couldn't meet the other guests. And our room was the main ballroom, but yeah, Friday was by far the busiest day for us because we had Dustin and Candace and Kelly and Zilla. So it was hard for me to leave during the show because picking up talent, taking them back, being at the booth, and I have a staff that helps me, but it's like I have barely any time. So if I do any private signings, I try to schedule that either after the event is over or prior to that.
Now, we did actually meet when I walked around the corner.
Yeah.
Me and AJ walked around to go see Zilla because
Mhm.
AJ was talking to Zilla, and I met Victor, and I'm talking to Zilla's mom,
Right.
and we're just
Mhm.
we're talking, and then
Well, that's why. That's why we. Okay, a real quick backstory. Mike was getting ready to do another show. He was going to do a big show, and I said, "Look, man, WrestleCon is coming up. I would rather you put the money into that,
Mhm.
and it'll legitimize the company because we did a live broadcast, and luckily, that's what happened to us. They came and said, "Hey, there's not much traffic up there. Can the Steiner brothers come down? If they can use this table for a little bit, we'll put them on your podcast." And I looked at Mike. Hell yeah, bring them
Yeah.
on down.
Come on.
So we actually
Mhm.
had them on, which legitimized us as because
Yeah.
people were like, "Bro, how'd you get them on there?" So the point I'm trying to make is, you never know what's going to happen, and it works to your advantage. You know what I'm talking about?
And what was funny after that was um, Michael, who runs High Spots
Yeah.
to put on WrestleCon, he comes over to me. He goes, "Hey," I said, "I think I got a deal for you." He goes, "This is Jim Duggan's wife," and I'm like, "Hi, how are you?" And he goes, he might want to come over here. She goes, nah, he's not coming over here to sign. But if you need to make content, just come around the corner and get Jim.
Yeah.
Jim will come over here and he'll do whatever. And
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, all right, because this was my first podcast. I mean, my first WrestleCon, Victor.
Mhm.
And so, I'm marking out right now. But everybody I grew up watching was right there.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
the Rock and Roll Express, dude. I watched them in Mid South
Right. Yeah.
back in the '80s. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
and to be able to, like, that Thursday when we opened up at 4 o'clock, I sat at the booth by myself just for about 20 minutes, and it was really surreal, bro. It really
Oh yeah.
was,
It's
because
that it's
everybody's walking
amazing.
around.
Oh yeah.
Eh,
It's that show is the biggest wrestling convention in the whole world. Like WrestleCon is like the staple. I think they had over 400 guests. They had like sold out of tables, and there was people that they were even asking me, "Do you have extra space? Do you have extra
Yeah.
tables?"
Yeah.
This is such a highly demanded show because number 1, it's WrestleMania weekend.
Hmm.
Number 2, you're in Las Vegas, which is the entertainment capital of the world. Okay, so everybody who's a wrestling fan, everybody who's coming from Southern California, from the West Coast, as well as the East Coast and international, everybody comes to WrestleMania weekend. And the thing with WrestleMania is this year was one of the first WrestleManias they've had in Las Vegas since 1993.
Yeah.
Oh
So there
wow.
was a lot of high expectations. They had a lot of shows going on. I mean, there was just so much events going on leading up to WrestleMania, during WrestleMania weekend, before WrestleMania, after WrestleMania. So not just WWE is putting on shows, but now you have these other third parties like independent wrestling companies
Right.
and people like myself that are more targeted audiences wrestling fans, but the autograph wrestling collector. And people come to these shows because they can get, everybody done in one weekend if they plan it right. So everybody, piggybacks off of WWE, but it's a no-brainer. It's everybody wins because you're just getting so much exposure to so many people throughout that weekend.
How many events did you attend outside of WrestleCon?
Well, to be honest with you, we just did WrestleCon, and then I went to WrestleMania both nights, and I went to Monday Night Raw.
Oh,
And
nice.
then yeah, and then prior to, WrestleCon, what we try to do is we try to organize, if it works out with the promoters that bring in talent, to see if we're able to get some private signings done, like with Bret Hart and Kurt Angle and Mike Tyson and things like that. And sometimes vendors will say, "Well, I know you have Dustin. Do you want to trade?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we can trade." So we try to do that, but it's like y- you're so exhausted after WrestleCon, you're just like, I just want to go eat dinner and relax and literally go home because you have to do it all over the next day.
Yep.
And even though we live here in LA in Southern California and it's only a drive, my wife was like, "Well, can we like stay in Vegas an extra couple days and just enjoy ourselves?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
because we like Vegas. We go there on a normal vacation. So we just wanted to kind of relax after all the events because it's a lot of work. We plan for this event 6, 7 months in advance. We make a lot of arrangements with talent and negotiating with bringing them in, and it's a lot of work. And then before you know it, it's here, and it goes by so fast.
It really does.
That's what we were
Yeah, it goes
saying.
by so fast,
Yeah.
but it's a great show. Um, I love WrestleCon. I like Michael from High Spots. He really cares a lot about his vendors. He always makes sure that his vendors do well.
Yes.
They come all the way from North Carolina, so they're putting in lots of time and effort putting the show together, and I can empathize as a promoter because when you do these conventions, there's so many nuances to them, and there's so many parts to it. There's so many moving parts to putting these signings together, from everything from organizing, getting the proper ballroom, the proper space, to making sure that you're getting the vendors into the show, then as well as booking the proper talent, negotiating with the talent, organizing hotels, flights, blocks of room. Then now you have to advertise the event, you have to promote the event, you have to market the event, you have to make sure you have enough staff to help accommodate your event. You know, there's a lot of logistics and a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that needs to be done.
Yeah, that's
So
I'm glad he made that point about the behind the scenes because Mike had to run around and get some shirts made at the last minute, some buttons made and stuff to put out on the table. But real quick, LAX Fan Fest, it's going to be Sunday, June
Saturday.
20, or I'm sorry, Saturday, June 28th, and it's at the
Mhm.
Hilton
The Hilton Hotel
right
by
by the
LAX.
airport, and it's going to be
Yes.
from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We've offered a couple after doing these autograph signings for many years, you always learn something new. You always try to do different things. You listen to fans' feedback, things they like, things maybe you could do. And one of the things we did this year is we offered a VIP admission and we offered a standard admission. So sometimes we have fans that like to get into the show an extra hour early if they're going to be trying to get multiple names throughout the show and they don't want to wait in line for some of the bigger names like Dustin and Brett. We offered a VIP package where it's $75 and included in the VIP package is you get 2 autographs and a photo op with Conan. You get early access to the show, and then if you're planning on meeting Brett or Dustin, you get front of the line access.
Oh, that's
So we
awesome.
kind of created that fast pass.
That's a
And then
bargain and a
for
half.
and then if you just have the casual fan that's just coming in, we just have a standard admission. It's 25 bucks. They're able to come into the show starting at 10 a.m. And with every admission, we included a free autograph or photo op. You can choose one with Ahmed Johnson.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
That is a bargain
Yeah.
and a half.
Oh,
So
man.
Yeah.
needless to say, you're definitely going to be doing WrestleCon next year because it's coming right back to Vegas.
Yes, and we were actually very happy about that.
Yeah,
My
so
wife
were
was
we.
actually like, "Did you see this?" I go, "Yes, I did,"
Yep.
Yeah.
because we thought it was gonna be in New Orleans. I mean, The Rock went out there. They did this whole thing saying WrestleMania, and we're like, "Okay, we thought if WWE's sending out The Rock to New Orleans, that's pretty much guaranteed."
Right.
But it just makes sense. I mean, again, Las Vegas is the entertainment capital of the world. They have a soccer team, a football team, they have a hockey team. Now they're going to have a baseball team. They're building the stadium right there on the strip. I mean, they're going to cater to everything. And I think they did just so well marketing and revenue wise with WrestleMania in Las Vegas. It was just probably a no brainer to bring it back.
Well, I highly recommend because we were talking. He was talking about how you're exhausted, and so the first Friday night, well, my wife wanted to go to Caesars and that wherever that was over there. We went to go eat, but the next day, because we have to be there so early, we were there at 8 o'clock to set up in the morning.
Mhm.
Well, the buffet at the Westgate opened at seven in the morning, and everybody was there. Tito
Yeah.
Santana, Perry Saturn, the Mountie, almost I would say almost half the people were there because they stayed there that night, and then they went to go eat there at 7 because you have to be to your booth by between 8:30.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
everybody was up there. But what Mike and I noticed the most is they're much older now. So they're like, "Hey, did you go out last night? Did you do some gambling?" No, man, I was in bed by 9:30. Back up
Yeah.
here at 7 o'clock.
The crazy thing was, we got done and we went over there where the sports bar is to go eat
Mhm.
and come back. I went and sat down and had a couple beers and I'm sitting there and, there's Jim Ross comes walking with Jerry Lawler.
Yeah, they were at the chicken place.
Yeah. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at all these guys and I'm just again marking out like, dude, I'm amongst them. I'm here. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
Robert Gibson comes up. He's like, "Hey, Michael, how you doing, man?" And I'm like, "I'm doing good. How you doing?" And I'm like, Robert Gibson just called me by my first
Well, Ricky
name.
Morton, yeah, Ricky Morton was like going almost to every booth and then introducing his son. Hey, he's coming up in the ranks. If you want to book us, I'll come with him
Yeah.
and all that. So that was one of the high points that when he came around.
He
to
walked
our
over.
booth.
Yeah, he walked over to the booth, and he was like, "Hey, Michael, I want to introduce you to my son Kelly." It's like, "Hey, you bring me and Kelly down there to California, and we'll tear the roof off the place, man."
Now, real quick, I just want to get a quick question in real quick. We're talking about Frank and Sons. Did you
Mhm.
know that they used to run shows there before?
Yeah, I'm actually been doing that show since I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
I'm one of the oldest vendors there, and before I started LAX Fan Fest, that's where I used to do all my wrestling
Yeah,
signings.
it was AWS and
Hmm.
Yeah.
Scrap Iron Adam Pierce, who's now the general manager for WWE. He wrestled there. Samoa Joe. There was
Oh,
quite
yeah.
quite a few people,
The Young
that came from
Bucks,
there.
Danny
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Bryan.
Young Bucks. There's a lot of people, but
Mhm.
you personally, since because I went to the WrestleCon the 2 years before that when it was in LA,
Yeah.
and but I first of all couldn't believe it. First of all, the line for Sasha Banks was probably the longest line I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it
I
Mhm.
was.
mean, I
Yeah.
I don't know who would stand in that line
But
for
that's when
so
she.
long.
But that's when she was
Then when she
hot.
first left
Yeah.
Yeah.
WWE,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
well, not only that, but when Mike and I went to New Japan, she wrestled Stephanie Vacher in the first match there. And when we saw her, we said, "Hey, man, this girl's got something,"
Hmm.
So from the beginning. But anyways, who real quick, is there anybody you personally would stand in line that long to see? Because Mike and I went back and forth with that. And I said maybe Ric Flair, but I think after an hour and a half, I'd be like, bro. And then when do you cut off the line? How do you know where to stop and go? Well, it's gonna stop right here.
Yeah, that's part of this whole, science, I guess, of doing signings is, um, you have to really know, with a lot of these, bigger names as far as if you're negotiating a deal with them because and it's happened to me before where you sometimes have to pay the talent longer to stay if you oversell the
Yeah,
event. So time is really a factor in all this. A lot of times too, you can negotiate certain types of deals depending on if the talent will stay for so long, if they'll sign so many items, so a lot of times it just really depends on what they're comfortable agreeing on. But yeah, you have to really, really know your audience. You have to know your customer base. You almost have to be able to forecast it. And a lot of these things with these events, and I always talk to my buddy Louis Alava, who's he's LAG Entertainment. He's my business partner with LAX Fan Fest. I tell him I'm like, we literally have to go through the event in our mind vicariously and process it and almost go through every possible thing that could take place. And we can't predict everything because
yeah,
there's always things that happen that are out of your control, but you literally have to go through the motions in your mind and picture the show just because when you have 500-600 people that come to these events, you do your best to cater to everybody. You do your
Right.
best to give everybody that experience. You do your best to give everybody a positive experience when coming to these signings. And that's what we really enjoy because I love seeing the families come and the little kids and people that are just enjoying themselves. And just like how you guys are talking, it's great because you're like, "Wow, so and so talked to me," or "I was able to
yeah,
spend 10 minutes with them," or, you're never gonna forget that. Like, those
No.
are experiences people are gonna remember, they're gonna tell other people. So that's one of the things, even as a wrestling fan myself, I love hearing those stories. Like, if I went to a WWE house show when they were in Anaheim at the Honda Center, and if they made an announcement and they said, "Okay, after the show, Bret the Hitman Hart's gonna be signing by the ring. Who wants to meet him?" I mean, that line would have everybody who appeared for the match. I mean,
yeah,
everybody would be there. You'd have 2,000 people.
Yep.
So these autograph wrestling signings really, really took off, probably only within like the last 10 or 15 years. They've always done sports signings, baseball, football, basketball, and Frankensons, you know, was known for its sports signings and stuff. And that was kind of my idea. And I was like, no one really does wrestling signings. Maybe this is something I should look into. And believe it or not, the first wrestling signing I ever did in my life was with Ric Flair. And it was back in 2012.
Uh,
And
wow.
I remember it because I remember reading something on one of the sheets where because Flair was living out of a motel back then. He went through a really bad divorce,
Oh
and he
wow.
was selling all of his ring worn gear, all of his robes. He was really struggling, and I remember his agent at the time and him. It made the dirt sheets, and it had her name on the dirt sheets, and I'm like, you know what? Let me call this phone number and let me just see. Maybe if I'm thinking to myself, I'm sure Flair's not hard up for money, but maybe he's a little bit more available to maybe do signings. And and the agent, I call her up and she got almost mad at me. She goes, "Don't even mention Ric Flair to me. I want nothing to do with him." And I'm
Wow.
like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." I go, "I didn't mean to ruffle your feathers. I was just interested in doing some business with him." "Well, if you want to do some business with him, you got to call his attorney, Melinda Zanoni, and here's her phone number." I'm like, "Okay." And
Wow.
that's how it just kind of started. So I had Ric Flair, I did Bret Hart. I actually did Bret Hart twice back to back. We did a signing with them, and then I had one of the guys I knew in like Carlsbad, San Diego area. They had a wrestling ring, and I came up with this idea maybe to do photo ops inside a wrestling ring. And sometimes that's not the best idea because when you get fans that's never been in a ring before, it's a little hard for them to walk. Because if you've never stood in a ring, it's a little
Hmm.
weird the first time. And then we did in 2012, I did Ultimate Warrior at Frankensons. And people still talk about that sighting to this day because Warrior would come in the full face paint, he'd come in his robe, and I had to work with a guy out of the UK, and I still keep in touch with the guy. And I even still have the emails that Ultimate Warrior wrote me. I'll keep those forever. So, you know, my point is you do these sightings and you work with these guys and you develop a good relationship with them because the wrestling industry is very small.
Right.
Even though there's a lot of these sightings now going on, it's a very small niche of guys that do these sightings. So if you do someone wrong, you don't pay them, you do them bad, word gets out.
Oh, yeah.
And believe it or not, the talent does all talk to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I've had the guys like when I wanted to do a signing, I remember with Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels, and I was working with Scott Hall, and Scott Hall, God rest his soul, he was probably my favorite wrestler growing up, but I had the chance to work with him for 6 years. I did every WrestleCon with him 6 years in a row. Like that was just our grandfather deal. But he would always vouch for me. He would always tell all the boys, "Hey, Victor's good. Victor's good. He pays on time. He honors what he says, yada yada yada." But the wrestling world's a very small industry. So if you do one guy bad, it'll get out
Yeah.
Yep.
and it ruins your name,
That's what
you know?
that's what we're talking about. Because Mike who runs his own company, that's what we strive when we meet and all that because other wrestlers call and they say, "Hey man, this guy from PWA called me," and they go, "Yeah, he's legit, bro. He's gonna take care of you." Because
Yeah.
if it only takes one person to say, "No, man, that guy screwed me" or whatever, and then it doesn't happen. But I have one question for Solomon. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Solomon, yeah, I don't know what you're into. Well, let me tell you this since we got Victor with us.
Uh-huh.
There was people out here. Penta did a signing at Boost Mobile or something, and they were lined up at since 3 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, that line went all the way down, and people were taking their kids. So I'm thinking, is there anybody that, yeah, in my mind, that I would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to be at line at 3 o'clock in the morning? So I don't know what Solomon is into, but is there anybody on God's green earth that you would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to get in line at 3 o'clock in the morning to get an autograph or to see or to meet?
That would be Dan Marino.
Oh,
No way.
Yes.
Dolphins
Are
fan?
you serious?
Yep. Dan Marino is my hero.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
He's a bad dude.
Yeah.
Wow. And what's crazy is Favi and I met over 30 years ago doing security in the entertainment business. And so we had an opportunity to meet a lot of people.
We got some stories, bro.
I mean stories. So like when you say that, it's like I remember, we were doing the LA marathon, and that's when we first met Muhammad Ali.
Mm.
And it was
Oh,
just like,
wow.
uh, he's the greatest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's weird how we get put in situations to meet people, and then to have, Solomon say, "Oh, Dan Marino.
Yeah. And he didn't hesitate.
Yeah.
No, and that's the only one, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
very few that I would. Well, what about?
Well, maybe Obama,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, he's a
Well,
president.
what about yourself? Is there any? Oh, I'll tell you. I'll tell you the one I saw the most that really I felt bad for was when they had the Lucha Expo in San Diego, and Rey Mysterio was signing, and he's like, bro, I gotta go. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, well, what do I have to cut the line? I go, I can't. Tell this kid, you get to go, but not you.
Right.
Or when he goes, just please tell him I got to wrestle. I'll be honest, I cheesed out. I told Kevin Klein, like, I can't do it, bro. You're gonna have to do it. So how do you get past that? That's like my main question. How do you get past that? How do you not break somebody's heart or whatever, for lack of a better term, or no pun intended,
Right.
to where you make that line? Because if you say, okay, well, like I saw Bret Hart at the one before that was in LA, he ended up staying and he finished that whole line. How long he was there, I'll never know, because that line was long. So if they come up to you and go, hey, Victor, you're gonna have to cut the line somewhere or whatever, how do you make that choice?
Yeah, I mean, that's happened to me before, and you do your best to try to accommodate everybody. You do your best to that's kind of part of the science of trying to organize your event as far as
Yeah.
many items you're going to pre-sell. Sometimes people, they want to sit there and talk with them, but unfortunately,
Yes.
it's autograph signing. It's not, sit down and talk with your best friend, but at the same time, we want to give them the experience that they're hoping for. So, we always try to plan our best with timing. That's one of the reasons why I do my show by the airport, just because when I was doing them at Frankensons, I mean, from LAX to Frankensons, it's an hour and a half one
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
sometimes, and an hour and a half going back. So when we were thinking about doing LAX, I was talking to my business partner, Lewis, and I was like, what do you think about maybe doing it maybe geographically close to the airport? And there's a lot of hotels that in that area that could accommodate people, and it would also be attractive to people maybe coming out of the state or out of the area because they could get in, get out. Talent could get in and get out. Because, like, for example, we're going to have Dustin Rhodes, and Dustin Rhodes is flying in the same day and flying out the same night. So it's like, he's got to wrestle for AEW. So sometimes when you're working with talent that's currently wrestling, they don't want to come in the night before. If they can have that extra day to stay at home with their family and sleep in their own bed, they'd rather do that.
Right.
So, you just have to do your best to properly not oversell the event. You have to make sure that you're going to have enough time with the talent. We don't try to push people off or tell people, okay, you got to go. We just gently say, okay, we have to have the next customer come in. So and usually everyone's really respectful and
Yeah.
really nice, and they understand, especially if they see a long line. So over the years of doing this for 12 years, we try to do our best to forecast that. So we never have to have disappointed fans or anything. And I've had that happen before. And sometimes you have to pay the talent longer to stay if they can, if they're willing to stay longer and they're like, okay, I'll stay longer, but you obviously have to compensate them.
But
Time is money for
it
everybody.
just
But,
it just
we do
seems,
our best.
yeah, it just seems like that's the hardest part. But real quick, I don't know if he's going to stay for the segment of our wrestling segment, but what we're going to talk about today, because we like to do the last segment of what's happening in pro wrestling. It's very rare that you see somebody that just takes off, but this Iguana Man that when they had when Worlds Collide, dude, who knew that just having an iguana, stuffed iguana, would take off like that? He's everywhere now. I don't know if you're familiar with the Spanish channels, but I
Yeah,
mean, because he's
seen
been
it.
in AAA for a long time. But I
Long
mean,
time,
just
long time.
that one show just lit the fuse. And I mean, he's everywhere now. Have you had anybody asking about, hey, can you get Iguana Man or anything like that
Oh
yet?
yeah, people comment and stuff. I mean, he's something fresh. He's
Yeah,
something
different.
new. But he's like you said, he's been in AAA for a long
Yeah,
time. So people that have been following AAA, that follow Lucha Libre Wrestling, it's not new to them. They know it, but like the WWE more mainstream fan, yeah, it's new to them. It's something fresh. It's funny. It's hilarious. The guy can work. He can do stuff that gets the crowd to pop, and That's really what, you need to do now these days. And and one guest, just to kind of let you know that we're having at LAX Fan Fest, who's now one of the executive producers in WWE that's part of AAA is Conan.
Yeah.
So Conan's going to be at LAX Fan Fest, and we all know Conan's reputation with AAA, in Lucha Libre, in WCW, NWO. I mean, you can go back to his days early on in WWF even. I mean, so yeah, I mean, whenever you have new, fresh talent that's over like that, it gets a buzz. It gets
Yeah.
a buzz.
Yeah, because I don't know how true it is, but they were saying, they might put him right up on the main roster.
Yeah.
Not even go to NXT, just straight up to the main
Well, when
roster.
people are clamoring for your gear and asking why you didn't have any merchandise for him,
Right.
it just seems like it's the next best thing, and they got to run with it because, like he said, there's only a short window.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they got to run with it. But we're running up against the clock. Do you want to stay with us while we go through the news?
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
no problem. Yes, yeah.
I actually have a question for you.
Before,
Mhm.
Tell us about the atmosphere of being in Allegiant Stadium
for
for WrestleMania. How was that? Because watching it was one thing,
Right.
but being there, tell us how that was.
I've been very blessed. This has actually been my 15th WrestleMania. So I've been very blessed to go. My first WrestleMania was just to give you a little context, was in 1996 at the Arrowhead Pond with Brett and Sean in the 1 hour Iron Man
Yeah.
match.
I got stories.
So-
I got stories for that. I got
So I'll
stories
never
for that.
forget. And the Ultimate Warrior entrance was probably one of the best entrances I ever saw live. But to answer your question, WrestleMania, going to a WrestleMania and being a WrestleMania fan, it's the best thing in the world. When I first got married with my wife, our first year, we got married during the pandemic in 2020. So obviously we can go to WrestleMania. So I told her 2021, we're going to WrestleMania in Tampa. And my wife, like, she knew about wrestling, but she didn't really understand, like, okay, whatever, And I said, honey, there's people that are wrestling fans for 20 years and they never even go to WrestleMania.
Yep.
And I'm like, your first wrestling event is WrestleMania. And she's like, oh, okay. So she goes, I take her to WrestleCon. She loves Scott Hall. Her and Scott Hall had a great relationship. That was the first time they met each other in 2021. She worked with Scott Hall. She handled his table, did everything. It was great. And that WrestleMania was the one in Tampa when it got rained out. We were getting rained on. They had the lightning storm
Mhm.
and they had cardboard cutouts in the seats. So my wife is looking at me like, oh, this is WrestleMania. And I'm like, yeah, this is just, unprecedented times, but you're sitting here watching history.
Yeah.
And ever since then, now she's a fanatic.
Yeah.
Now she loves the belts. Now she wears the shirts. Now she has an album this thick with every wrestler I've ever booked. She always gets one photo made out to her. Now she has all her Funko Pop collection. Now she loves Penta. Her favorite's Rey Mysterio. She dresses up like Rhea Ripley. She loves all of it. Like, and she didn't understand this world because she's like, oh, what do? You sell sports cars, like coche cars. I'm like, no, honey. Tarjeta, sports cards, collectibles. And I took her to Frankenstein's and I started taking her to my shows. And she was like blown away. She's like, this is a whole nother world that she knew nothing about. And now she's a fan herself. So the last 5 WrestleManias, being able to go with my wife, enjoy these, we make great memories, being out there. It was funny because our first night one, we sat up a little bit higher. We had nice seats, and we actually like to sit up higher because we can see the whole ring. Well, night 2, we had a problem with our tickets with TickPick. We never got them sent to each other. So we're looking at each other. We're like, well, we're already here. So we're buying tickets last minute, and we literally got tickets on the floor.
Shut
12
up.
rows. Yeah. So we sat on the floor for night 2, which was a great experience. My wife loved it. She had so much fun, taking pictures, filming it, and I had more fun watching her enjoy herself. And so to answer your question, WrestleMania was great. It's a great experience, especially being in Las Vegas. Leaving the stadium, is a little wonky because there's just so many people leaving at once. But, we know Vegas. We know how to get around. We did a lot of walking. We love sightseeing. We love enjoying the strip and just having a good time. But yeah, WrestleMania was a lot of fun. We're definitely planning on going again next year, so we can't wait. And hopefully, we'll get Rock and Roman. That's what I'm hoping for.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, that would be
did,
huge.
did you go? Did you go to the Fan Fest for the WrestleMania? That was at Anaheim. Did you go to the Anaheim Convention Center for fanfare?
Yeah, yeah. So Anaheim Convention Center, back then when they had WrestleMania, they didn't have like the access. Well, it used to be called Access. That's what they used to
Yes.
call it.
Yes.
So they didn't have it in 96. They had it in 2000. And I went there and I waited in the long line. And that's when the autographs were free. They weren't charging for autographs. We had to wait. I met The Rock. And I waited in the long line. But I was one of those guys back then when I was 16, 17, they used to call us the graphers, where we would go to the hotel when I was like 15, 16 years old. And I remember meeting Stephanie McMahon, and she would say, okay, one autograph per person, and Chris Jericho. And I'll never forget when I met Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero, and I used to get like programs, magazines, and I didn't get this stuff to resell. This was just for me because I
Right.
was a wrestling collector, and I just liked having this stuff, and I thought it was so cool. Now even though I'm at the hotel, but there's a lot of other fans here, and I'd see these guys here, and a lot of them would sign. I remember asking Eddie Guerrero. He didn't look good. He looked tired. He looked exhausted. He came in. He didn't stop for nobody, and I just said, "Hey, Mr. Guerrero, do you mind signing this?" He turned around, looked at me real quick. He stopped and he signed it.
Well,
You still have it?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that stuff that I have is like all
yeah,
like
it's
sentimental
personal.
value,
Yeah.
stuff I'll never sell. It all has a story behind it. Like all the stuff that I've collected with my father and I when I was younger, all the stuff now I'm collecting with my wife. Everything has a story behind it. So we love it. We enjoy it. That's kind of the fun of collectibles and memorabilia, besides it's having a nominal value, but the story behind it and the sentimental value that I
Yeah.
get to share and,
I can only
and
imagine.
talk
Well, you
about.
gonna tell them a story?
so Big Jim was the head of security for WWF back then.
Mhm.
And if you don't remember who Big Jim was, he always wore a leather hat
Yeah.
backwards, and he was
Oh yeah,
he
yeah, I
was
remember
he
him.
was
Can't
Yeah,
go hat.
yeah he was can't
during
go
the
hat
Attitude
backwards.
Era. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so we're back there, and he goes, "Hey, Hoss, I want you with me." So I go with him, and I'm the talent escort. So I go up to the green room. I go up to the elevator. I go to the green room. So that whole weekend, man, I'm with Big Cat Ernie Ladd. I'm with Undertaker. One of the funniest stories I have, I had to take down Freddie Blassie, Fabulous Moolah, Mae Young, and Freddie Blassie's wife. And so we go down the elevator and I take them to go do their autographs. And I go to pick them up. And so we're walking back, and Freddie Blassie goes, "Hey, kid, I got to use the bathroom." And I said, "Well, Mr. Blassie, we're almost to the elevator. I'll take you up to the green room." He goes, "I'm 80 years old. I'm not going to make it." So what he does is, at the time he had a little Japanese wife. He walks over to a trash can by a roll-up door, and he pees in the trash can. And I'm looking at him, and I turn and I look at Moolah, and she looks at me, and I'm just like, what's going on right now? So his wife comes and she gives him hand wipes, and we get back in the elevator, and I still have this look on my face. And Moolah kind of grabs me by my jacket, and she pulls me to her. She said, "Baby, don't worry about it. That's Freddie. He does stuff like this. Just let it go." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
You're seeing them in a different light.
Yeah, I'm like,
different element.
okay, all right. So
Funny.
I remember being at the pond and watching Shawn Michaels rehearse coming down the whatchamacallit,
Cable.
the cable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
while I was watching that, there was somebody sitting in the seats before the house opened up. So I walked down the stairs and I look, and it was Mick Foley. He was sitting up in the empty seats, and I go, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "I'm gonna be at Raw tomorrow night. I'm gonna, and I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." And so I'm like, "Dude, I've watched you since you were at world class all the way back then. And he's like, really? I said, yeah. So that weekend, I was able to meet so many people. I sat behind JR and the King. You see me on the
While they were on commentary?
yeah, you see me. I was bald headed at the time. So I'm
Mhm.
sitting right behind them. And by the time the Bret Hart Shawn Michaels match, I was standing in the wrestler walkway by the curtain, just watching.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal. I mean, it
Phenomenal.
was
Yeah.
it was that was one of the highlights because I got to talk to Owen Hart that
Mm.
night. You know what I mean? And it was just
Well, at the forum when we were working there,
mhm.
they got in a fight, Brett and Owen, because they come walking down the ramp, and Owen goes up to Brett and goes, "What the hell's wrong with you renting a Cadillac?" He goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I gave you the car to rent the car. You were supposed to get a Ford." He goes, "I'm not squeezing in that little ass car." And he goes, "That car's costing me money." And they were fighting back and forth. So Owen's always been like that. Make sure you rent the Ford instead of the Cadillac, and Brett rented the
Yeah.
Cadillac. But real quick, since we're running up against, like, I just want to get one, because I've had emails and so many messages and stuff like that, because I think AEW is trying to counter, since WWE is bringing all the luchadores in.
Right.
So they had the big show against CMLL, and the whole rage and everything that was, I don't know if you watched when they had the
Wednesday night?
AEW against CMLL.
Yeah.
But they had MJ. Well, first of all, can you give me your thoughts on MJF real quick, because he got a lot of heat for pulling off the mask of Mystico.
Yeah.
But give me your thoughts on him. I mean, well, Ricky Starks put him in his place. He said, "Hey, it's easy to be a heel. You screw up, you're supposed to. Let me see you be a face, and we'll see when the real man comes out." Give me your thoughts on him real quick.
I mean, you know what? I kind of feel like AEW is gonna do whatever they can to kind of concede to MJF, because I feel like that's one of their main big stars. So I feel like they're gonna give him kind of carte blanche with whatever he does. So if he's doing these ideas with creative, because I guarantee you that was his idea. I guarantee
Definitely.
you he came up with something like that just because he likes, MJF was a wrestling fan himself, growing up. And he watched the Attitude Era. And what we don't realize, unless you were watching wrestling back then, so our age, if you're 30s, 40s, 50 years old, everything we're seeing is really circling around.
Yeah.
It's things that we saw, because back then that was shock TV to us. 96 WrestleMania, Roddy Piper, Goldust pulling off the Goldust suit and seeing Dustin wear the panties and the
Yep.
thong and stuff. Like that was like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is like shock TV. So I just feel like MJF is trying to do something, not necessarily that exact thing, but something for us to talk about. He wants that shock factor. Listen, you're competing against WWE right now. We all know WWE, they're always going to be winning. They're always going to be the leader in pro wrestling. It's just the way it is.
They're the machine.
They are. And I give props to AEW, because I think one of the reasons why WWE had to step up their game is because when you have competition, you step up your game even more. I feel like MJF right now, he's their big star. He's their key guy. He's going to do whatever, he wants to do. He's going to do what he thinks is best for him, what's best for his company, and what's best that's going to, not to be cliche, but best for business, but what's best that's going to create MJF value.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when MJF is done with AEW, he's going to sign that contract, he has to create value for himself. At the end of the day, this is a business.
Right.
That's what these guys are doing. And as a wrestling fan, you don't think of all that. You don't see all those nuances, but that's why he's creating the shock factor. Guy's great on the mic. The guy's a good worker. He's got the look. His autograph signings are a little bit off the wall,
Yeah.
so you kind of have to be prepared if you book a guy like that. But I think if you're going to book someone like that, you know what you're getting into. But the guy's over, and he's kind of like, I don't want to say like he's like Stone Cold, but he's kind of like that heel face where he could be a heel, but he's still over with the crowd. The crowd's always going to cheer him no matter what.
You think so?
Yeah, well,
I personally, I think he pushes it too much.
well,
I think he pushes it way too much. I don't know if that's what they want or whatever, but to me, it just seems like it's way too much.
well, I think uh, all the cussing and the middle fingers.
Yeah.
Stone Cold did that, so we saw that. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, move on. What else? What else are you going to bring to the table?
Yeah.
Personally, I think that Will Ospreay is really flourishing now, and I'm hoping that he gets a bigger push. Nothing against John Moxley, but I think that's wearing a little thin. He's had his
Yeah.
run with it. Give it to somebody fresh.
Yeah.
I also think that they really need to start boosting ROH and allowing ROH to be like NXT, its own entity, and pushing those that they're not going to push on AEW TV, push over there. I think they missed the whole store when they let Jonathan Grisham go. Grisham is a beast. He's a Chad Gable at that size.
I think people would pay money to see him against Zack Sabre Jr.
Oh, in a heartbeat.
Or like that. But well, let's ask our guest. Because to me, who would be your hood ornament for AEW? Because for me, and I don't know why they didn't, I would have made Cesaro turn
Yeah.
on Moxley and them and make him my hood. Because that dude, he went to New Japan and
Yeah.
he looked like a superstar out there. He can work with anybody. He's got the size. I think if they gave him a push, that would be my hood ornament. What about yourself?
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't watch much AEW. I mean, I keep up with it here and there. I think Cesaro's a great worker. I think they should utilize him more. But I'm like, what happened to Swerve? Like, Swerve was their
Yeah.
guy. Swerve was their champion. And I feel like, yeah, he did a lot of the hardcore stuff. He did some of that stuff, but I don't think he needed to do that. I think
Yeah.
he was already over.
Yep.
He had a great entrance. He was over with the fans. He was a good worker. And I don't know. I feel like, but I can't honestly say because I don't watch AEW every week, to be honest with you. I'll follow it. Like I like Samoa Joe. I thought Samoa Joe having the belt was good because he kind of deserved it. He's put his time in wrestling. Yeah, I mean Cesaro, give him a chance, that guy's a great worker, great worker. I think
You gonna tell him about Samoa
Hey,
Joe?
backstory. Favi and I and Samoa Joe used to sit in Favi's daughter's room and watch pay-per-views. I used to have a black box
Of ECW.
for ECW
Mhm.
pay-per-views when Joe was working. He was working for Hashimoto.
yeah,
over in 01 in Japan.
Dude, I don't know how the floor. It was me, Samoa Joe, Mike, Rocky Romero, him and Ricky Reyes.
Rocky Romero.
All we had to put the mattress up so everybody could sit behind.
And I remember
and
remember when I
Ricky
broke
and Rocky brought In-N-Out Burger
Mhm.
for themselves, so we put them in the back. And we blew so much gas. They were watching the pay-per-view like this. We're like, come on, man.
And I remember I broke a chair. I was sitting, I broke a chair, and Joe just kind of looks at me.
Yeah, and that's another one who's paid his dues and put his
Yeah.
time in. So
Yeah.
did Swerve go over on Samoa Joe to win the belt?
I can't.
Because that I can't remember, but that would legitimize him as a real worker to go over on Samoa Joe, and I
Yeah.
think maybe that's what
Yeah,
pushed
that would
him
make sense.
pushed him up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And I mean, they got Edge, they got Christian, but I don't feel like, I don't know. I feel like Edge, is not the Edge that we've seen him in WWE. I don't know if it's just me or something,
Well,
but
it's
I
his
don't
age,
feel he's
man.
like,
it-
he's not, a guy like that who's a legend, because they bring back like in WWE, like now they're bringing back Goldberg, they're bringing back, and these guys, they still have that, demand for main event and stuff. But I feel like, and I was never a Goldberg fan, to be honest with you.
I
wasn't
I wasn't.
real. Yeah, I
Didn't
was,
get it.
I mean, I liked him. I thought the whole thing was good, but after a while, I wasn't like, I don't know, as I got older, I kind of just, and for also personal reasons too, we had kind of a little thing in LA at the WrestleCon, me and him.
Oh,
He
okay.
was, yeah, but um But yeah, but what my point was is like I feel like okay, WWE will bring back these big stars and legends from the past, and they're over. But like Edge, man, I don't know, man. I feel like he's devaluing himself for
Yeah,
some
I
reason.
kind of get that same vibe.
I
Yeah.
feel like I don't know, man, because Edge, man, like that guy is one of the greatest talents ever to come out in wrestling. That guy,
Yes.
if you go back and watch some of the matches he's done, and but now in AEW, and I feel like he has a love for the business. He wants AEW to succeed, so he's doing everything he can. Plus, he's there with Christian.
Yeah.
But
They got
I
to
just feel
reunite
like
those bad boys.
his value's not the
Well,
same. But I don't watch AEW all the time, so
Well, I'll be honest, you're not missing none. You're not missing much. I mean, I just got to be honest.
Yeah.
It started out really well, but it just kind of really,
yeah.
especially when they had the first pay per view All In.
Every
You know,
time
Oh,
that was because it was different, and the matchups
I went to
were different.
I went to the first
I
All
went to
In
that one too. Yeah, the one
Yeah.
in Vegas.
in Vegas.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Mandalay
man.
Bay.
Yep,
Yeah,
I was
yep.
there.
I was there
Every
too. I
time,
thought it was great.
yeah, every time I took my father.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
time I talk to Favi and I go, "Hey, you watch AEW?" That's what he does,
I
and I'm
just
like,
get
"Oh,
so
you suck."
disappointed because of what they do. But, anyways, I got to tell you, man, I'm looking forward to FanFest.
Yeah,
I had such a good time at the last two WrestleCons and all that. I look forward to it. It's for the people that are going to watch this and listen to it. I'm telling you, you will definitely not be disappointed. It's just so nice to see them in their element.
Yeah.
The highlight of mine was we were getting ready to leave on Friday. I have it on my Instagram. And I told my wife I was going to go talk to Frankie Kazarian because I used to work shows with him for cheerleader Melissa's father. And I turn around and there's Ric Flair right there. And I'm like, hey, and all the UFC guys were
Yeah.
taking pictures with him and all that. And I had a fresh can of Skull. And I said, hey, man, I got a fresh can of Skull. He's like, oh, let me get a piece. He goes, I got to go to the bathroom. It's like, so he turned to go in the bathroom and everybody started following him. So his manager,
Yeah.
whoever that was, hey, you got to give him some time to himself. Don't know what happened to him. He must have went out the other side or whatever, and I missed him. But that was just being that close was awesome. So I definitely look forward to
man.
FanFest. It's going to be Saturday, June 28th.
Yes,
It's going to be from 9 to 6, and it's going to be at the
Hilton.
Hilton.
Yeah, the 9 o'clock. The 9 o'clock opening is for VIP,
Correct. Yep.
and then the doors will open at 10 o'clock for standard for everyone else.
Yep. Yep.
Hey.
And if people want to buy their tickets or you're still on the fence about going to the show, visit the website, fanfestlax.com. We have pictures, videos from our past events. We've had everybody from Undertaker, Kane, the Hardy Boys, Britt Baker, Adam Cole. We've had so many wrestlers at LAX Fan Fest. You're not going to want to miss this.
Oh, yeah.
Bret Hart, he's getting up there.
Right.
He's not doing too many signings as he was. So if you haven't had a chance to meet the best there is, the best there was, he is really the best there ever will
Oh,
be.
I
That guy
agree.
Yes.
is
100%.
great with his fans. His autograph is one of the nicest autographs. He's really nice, soft-spoken guy. You want to meet a legend. Plus, we're also going to have Dustin Rhodes there. You're not going to want to miss that. Ahmed Johnson, one of my personal fan favorites, will be there. X-Pac, The Godfather. You're also going to get a chance to meet Zilla Fatu, who I think next year at this time will probably be
he's probably
in
gonna be-
WWE.
Yep.
And we're going to have a lot of vendors there selling merchandise, selling memorabilia. We're going to have some great artists there too. So it's going to be a great time. Rikishi's going to be there. The list goes on and on. We're also going to have Mina Shiakara from AEW there, Jasmine St. Clair, Shelly Martinez, EC3 will be there. It's just going to be a great show. So if you're a
It's gonna
big
be
wrestling
huge.
fan, autograph wrestling collector, you're going to be in the LA area, come by. It's a great time with the family. It's Saturday, June 28th, starts at 9 a.m. at the Hilton right by the LAX airport.
Is there a website that they can go to check
Yeah,
it out?
he's-
Yeah, it's fanfestlax.com. So instead of LAX FanFest, the domain name is just fanfestlax.com. You can go on there. All the packages are on there. All the VIP packages
Highly
with
recommend you check
Conan.
it out. It's going to be awesome.
All the information's on there. If anyone has any questions, they can always send us an email, send us a text. We're happy to answer questions and accommodate everybody before the event.
Well, here's my hope. Okay, this is the. Have you went to YouTube and seen if you put in Prince Devitt Chop, it's a little story about him, how the Japanese people wanted the sponsors wanted him to chop. And you got to watch it, because I'm hoping maybe someday we can get Finn Balor, because out of all the people that I would want them to chop Solomon,
You know
so
what?
he could see what it feels like.
That is
it
our-
would be Finn Balor, who was
No.
Prince
That-
Devitt back then. Watch that on YouTube. You put in Prince Devitt chop, and you see what they go through, because he's like, well, this guy's a sponsor, but I got to protect the business, and he just lays him out
See?
with the chop. You got to see that.
No, you know what, Victor? That's our cue to leave.
Yes.
because he's always wanting Solomon
So
to be.
Solomon can
Yeah.
get
He always
get the
wants.
feel
He
for it,
always
you know
wants
what I'm
Solomon
saying?
to be the guinea
He
pig.
thinks I'm a test
Well,
dummy.
yeah.
Either get choked out by an MMA fighter, or
Or
now
kicked, the
or
low
kicked,
kick, yeah.
a low kick, and now getting a chop. So
I'll
hey,
tell you
Victor,
one thing. I'll tell you one thing. Sorry, I'll tell you one thing. I just got to interject this. We just announced it today. We're actually going to have Chris Masters there, courtesy
Oh,
of
we
Circle
could put him in
Pick,
the
doing the
Nelson.
Master Lock Challenge.
Yeah.
oh, okay, you know
So
what,
if you're brave enough to do the
That's
Master
what
Lock
I'm on.
Challenge,
Perfect.
Solomon,
do it.
Solomon, I got your back.
All right.
Victor Pritchard, we had an
Appreciate it,
amazing
man.
time tonight.
Definitely look
Thank
forward
We
you
to
so
it.
appreciate
much.
you. We cannot wait to see you live and in living color, as Dusty Rhodes would say, next Saturday morning. Solomon, a million thank yous
Yeah.
for another amazing show. Favi, I mean, the show flew by because we were having so much fun. But we got to get out of here, folks. So, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you guys watching. Hang in there. Wait, we're going to post this show, and I'm telling you, you got to watch it.
Definitely got to check it out.
We'll see you guys later at Scoop Slam Radio. Bye, you guys.
take care. God bless.
You too.